up, everyone?
Hey
And
guys.
welcome to tonight's Midnight Ranting. Oh, scientifically proving Jesus is the Son of a God. Dun dun dun.
Empirical
For
evidence,
tonight,
folks. Real evidence.
real. Touch it, feel it. Tonight, we are discussing if Jesus can be scientifically proven as the Son of God and watching a video that claims to demonstrate so with 100% certainty. Money back guarantee.
I'll take it 100%, huh?
Exactly.
That's
So come
a
join.
whole lot of certainty.
That's a lot of
I
certainty.
know, isn't it? You can always tell when
Oh.
people are telling the truth when they know for 100% certain. Like car salesmen, used car salesmen. They're 100%. Maybe he's gonna last
Dog
forever from a grandma.
needs his treat.
Woo! Doggies always need their treats because all dogs are good boys and good girls. Little known fact.
Say hi to Gizmo, too.
Hi, Gizmo! But yes, not only all good boys and good girls. Come join James W., myself, Amy Newman, and our special guest host, Pat Lowinger, for some fun that's worth dying for. Oh my.
So we'll be Christians soon.
I mean, 100% guarantee.
Get ready for Matt.
What is up, everyone out there on the interwebs? As always, if you have recently gotten your vaccine or booster shot, now is the
You're
time
going
to
to hell?
activate your government authorized 5G chip.
Before you go to hell.
But before you go to hell, that's where the waiting rooms are.
Mark of the Beast, yeah.
If you're feeling fancy, please don't forget to like, follow, or subscribe, and then hit that bell icon so you can set it to all to join our live streams. Hi,
Hey
interwebs.
guys. Transwebs.
Interwebs. Exactly. I like to think of it as transcending webs. That's right.
Yeah.
We are a skeptic channel, including the Schmucks you see hosting.
The Trinity of Schmucks.
Dun, dun, that's right.
3 dicks.
Oh. However, at the back half of the show, we will be opening up the floodgates, or rather, the open mic, so anyone can say what's
Opening the zipper.
mind. That's right, baby.
Lower that
We'll
zipper.
also give the chance for anyone to have their own opening closing statements, atheist or theist, liberal or conservative, come as you are. Just, my sheets. You're really going to do that to me? I clean everything. I wash the flags.
Pat hears it from his wife, too, so he's just like,
Listen, it's a busy life that we all hold in this society. Some of us say we live in a society. Good old DC. But yes.
a nice construct.
A nice construct when you gotta understand the context, James. You just need to understand the context.
Yeah.
They have a book for that, and you just need to understand the context where you get conned. Oh no, totally. It's a big fish. Not a whale. Then it would be fiction. But it's a big fish. So, it's history.
You didn't hear Ken Hogan's rendition that, well, I mean, hey, if according to God, if it's in the water, it's a fish. Humans come and they want to say, well, it breathes air, so it's not a fish, whatever. God says if it's in the water, it's a fish. Therefore,
also means if we go in the water, we're a fish. I like where this logic is going.
Well, bats and birds. I mean, according to God, if it flies, it's a bird. So the bat would be a bird, but the ostrich is not. The ostrich is one of those weird wing-feathered land mammals. No.
Exactly. The same with penguins. All right? Can't fly, not a bird.
Biblical classification.
Still adorable and always looking like they're going to a banquet, but according to Ken Hovind's logic. It's a kind. Like same kind, but takes me to jail. Anyway,
Soft subject, Amy.
this. Oh, you would say it's a soft subject, though I like to think of him more as a gravity professor that deals in heavy weights. So I guess it really doesn't matter how heavy an object is, does it? My two gentle
I don't know.
friends.
Ask Otangelo.
This is always the part of the show where I really hope the board of trustees of my institution don't watch. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Listen, I just
Amy
have
just
to say to all of those board of trustees, I am sending so many hearts. Look, we are defending science, okay? We are team science. Even if we might be a little rough around the edges, sometimes where's Grandpa? You just gotta take the rock and you gotta chisel. But once you get through the chiseling, I like to think there's a diamond of a podcast. Sending love out there.
Amy will be making an enhancement, in fact, to the endowment of the university.
Oh my. See, now we're talking.
She'll be enhancing their endowment.
College, but yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
College.
Yeah.
That's right.
College, yes. College.
Doesn't matter. I support undergrad, graduate studies, whether you're just a researcher, okay? We're sending everyone out there hearts as
it's
well
not Patriot University, so I mean, there are tiers of academic institutions, you know.
That is true. Now, it's funny you say that because my favorite, I do have a bias, having learned that it tends to be the private nonprofits and the public nonprofits. Not that there's no love for the complete private for-profit institutions. I have just had some weird experiences with them. But, woo! Sending love to all academic institutions out there.
Like the Full Sail University in Florida that preys
like
on
the 100% like those type of schools. Now look, you can get good results out of schools like them as long as your head is in the game early, which is a hard thing to do because I went to a school that was one of my first ones. It was basically like a la carte, like you could take as many credits as you want, but it was a super expensive high-tech school, very fancy. But then if you are a newbie and you can only take like one or two classes, then that a la carte, it's like going to a buffet and then only being able to process appetizers. And so if your head isn't in the game early, those type of schools can be difficult because self-discipline is probably the hardest thing to find in and lack of procrastination and all that kind of stuff.
Oh,
that comes with experience and age and all that kind of fun. But we love all academia.
The veterans to waste all their VA benefits on video game art design that has like a 6% job placement rate. But hey,
like I said, exactly. You need to. I'm not gonna completely call out any schools.
Yeah.
But I always give a good warning if you are a newbie. It doesn't sound elegant. Go after your cheapo lay public school for the good 2 years, figure out what you want to do, go and get your 4 years because now you have figured out kind of what is interesting and you haven't spent that much money. And then if you really love it, then go on and go
The
to
full
graduate
15
school and the full 15 exactly. And because that's what a lot of employers look at is your last one anyway, your most
pretty
recent.
much, yeah.
And so you might as well spend as much money as invested as you are. I am a gigantic fan of academia, probably for now in about a decade. Woo, I have to step out. But you learn from experience.
Yep.
Those are the kind of things you don't know until you to start to come out. That being said, hell yeah,
Hey
baby,
guys.
go out. I gotta celebrate Pat, who's doing his getting through his thesis, and I'm trying to celebrate sending love out there, getting the bow on mine. Evening, folks. Woohoo! That's right. Saying hello to
Hey guys.
everybody out there, and also we are sending love to KO Champ. Woo!
Coach Ham.
Foley included. Woo! And this time went for the head and actually solved Infinity War. Boop, boop. But also triggering the Abrahamic religions because, oh my goddess, are you telling me that there is other gods out there? A little
Not
bit.
real gods.
Not real gods. I mean, they have more screen time than the classical ones lately. So, but that, of course, I love the branding on that. The classic stuff. It's like KFC.
Classical theism.
Doesn't matter if they were the first fried chicken. Who knows? But it's all about branding. Once you're out there, you're selling it. You can push the others to the side. But also, eyes from the Atheist Roundtable, who just got done being at the Faithless Forum. Woo! I want to go to that next year.
Next year,
I want to start going to more events. I am sending love to all my non-believing brothers and sisters, along with my theist brothers and sisters, because it's a big tent if you're on Team Science. But we are also sending you out to Tart.live because are you looking for better conversations? Are you looking for a better non-believing
Apparently
community?
not.
Well, you better get your. That's right, baby. What is up?
Love you guys.
And you better get your tookus down to better. Because if you love the Faithless Forum, let's keep on the non-believing events because, ladies and gentlemen, in the skeptic community, we do it better.
Yeah. Pack it up, Amy.
I know, I couldn't help myself. But I tried to save your ears. That's the
Never seen a
lizard,
lizard,
ladies and gentlemen. I know. Yo, those statements, they make my brain go, is it a troll? Is it a Poe? Is there even some semblance of him believing it? I won't say truth, but him. Because how funny would that be? Just randomly, it's the Ashkenazi Jews that are
DNA tested an iguana.
I also don't get why lizards.
Jew.
Can I just say, like, I feel like there's a humanistic reason why conspiracies pick lizards, because they're like far enough evolutionarily that they lose a bunch of like the hair, and so it starts to feel a little bit more alien to us, even though lizards are really not that far away from us evolutionarily.
No, they're not. Reptiles are not. Reptiles are closer than a lot of other things.
Exactly. Basically, it was just the last extinction event where we had the small fairy lizards, which were the small mammal group over here, that they really had this uh, big separation event where new niche we mammals filled in a bunch of those niches, but generally speaking, they are sophisticated, multicellular, conscious, sentient beings. Um, like I said, I think it's just, artistically, I feel like they're a little bit further away from us, and you can go green skin and everything, so maybe the conspiracies just can wrap their heads around that stuff. I just find it funny.
Very funny.
Didn't even know my family was Ashkenazi until my late 20s. That's the other thing. So if my family is lizards, it would have taken me much longer. I would have found my sexuality way before I found out I was a lizard. I just think that's funny. Yeah. But sure, because I still remember, because I went to my parents after fighting with so many Nazis for so fucking. Oh, I was Ashkenazi? They're like,
Nazi?
Ashkenazi. Yes, we're Ashkenazi. They couldn't even say it. I was like, what do you mean? Isn't that the They're like, yeah, but bacon and, well, sometimes you want to have cheese on the burger. And I'm like, oh, okay. You do you. You do you. But also, sending love to Ian Taylor. Boom, boom, boom.
Thanks,
As we
Ian.
level up in the skeptic community. Boom, 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 boom. Oh, but also as we try to look at a heart and say, yeah, it actually makes sense why conscious creatures would have varying degrees of organ tissue. Yay! It's not a what.
Devolution.
Devolution. Is it devolving? No, it's leveling up, ladies and gentlemen, to my heart.
Well, like Kent Hovind would say, it's evolution.
Evolution.
Mwahaha. But also, sending love when we listen to these claims like, can you scientifically prove that Jesus is the Son of God? It makes all of us skeptics, including a grumpy old cuss, go bleep, 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 bleep. Because, yeah, it's kind of silly if you think about it, and I don't think they do. That is, I think.
Hopefully Grumpy's watching, because then he can join us apparently at church on Sunday.
Sup, Grumpy? I know.
That's going to be an awkward conversation at the Thanksgiving table, Amy. So
Thanksgiving.
What's going on with you? Converted to Christianity.
Well, I mean, this is 100% guarantee. And just like I assume hand sanitizer, this should be better than hand sanitizer. 100%.
Yeah.
I like
much better than the vaccines.
James, we're going to be Christians. Pat, I'm so sorry. We're going to have to be Christians.
Pat's got to tell his wife, honey, you were right all along. I'm sorry.
Right.
You were right.
Nope.
Nope.
My Lord and Savior. I always find those words, they say it with such a gusto, but Lord implies, well, hope someone's getting on their knees. But then they saved you. It was like I was drowning, and then it wasn't science or someone else who pulled me out. No. It was literally Jesus in long flowing hair. He jumped into the ravina, and he picked me up, pushing the water out of my lungs. Oh, thank you, Kyrie Jesus. Thank you. That's what I imagine it would have to be.
And then he said, worship me. Worship me
now.
Then
he said, worship me.
On your knees, bitch. Worship me. And Dale Pastel is asking
This
where
is
the
getting
debate
better.
was, but
As we
unfortunately,
were, and I
Dale,
will
the
say,
debate did get postponed yet again.
it did get postponed. Gavin said that there was some sort of issues. I'm not
Personal
sure
issue,
what,
yeah.
but I am sending him love as I cough into the microphone.
It has been rescheduled to Friday, I believe.
Which
So
I'm not sure. I basically told, and I said I'm not sure if I can do Friday. I can do the weekend sometime. We can figure something out. But he did put it towards that date. The 22nd was the definite, though. I don't know what the other dates before that were.
It was 100% certain.
100% certain. But I'm sending love to praise. I understand as a podcast producer, shit happens. Sending love to Gavin because I know shit happens. I'm just looking forward to the debate. So whenever it does happen, it's the classic why does God or
evidence
do we even have evidence for a God to exist? Gavin and myself, head to head, gonna bring him up from down here. Gavin, is that gonna? All right. Oh, he's as excited as I am, and let me tell you,
I could tell he's got a mouthful down there.
And I kid. But yes, we're sending love. I send love to all my theist brothers and sisters, all my creationist brothers and sisters. And, hopefully I could get them at least over to Team Science. But I would like to get everybody over that deistic line. I say it as openly as I can because it is what is in my heart, my stuffed heart.
It is her karma.
It is. Oh, that being said, I'll break bread with anybody, ladies and gentlemen. I will have some halal meat as long as it's kind of tasty. I'll try it because it's meat.
Have a beer with Smokey.
Have a beer. Look, I don't care. Like I said, we'll put any jokes that I'm thinking aside. I am all for old earthers. Come on board the old Earth train. He gets on board evolution.
Maybe have Cosmos with Smokey.
But, I would also like to know just why people believe what they believe. That is the core thing. Doesn't matter who they are. Doesn't matter if it's LPP. Doesn't matter if it is not Justin. Kalel. Doesn't matter who they are. Come on, my flags. I'll clean it up later. And we'll try to have a theological discussion. We like to have very deep conversations on this channel. We like to keep it very sophisticated. Very sophisticated. We also like to send.
That is daily. Oh yes, go ahead.
What's that?
The daily Sandra Bullock sacrifice covered in flour and oil. Yeah.
I will say it's always hard when we have to kill a Sandra Bullock. We grow them. They are organic fed. I like to think we take care of them with love. We give them all of the pistols and dresses that they need to be successful miscongenialities. But every once in a while, a holiday comes by and
God says,
you'll want to have a good slice. You got to sacrifice a Sandra Bullock. Things happen. You can
spray the blood around the altar.
God likes it. On our Skeptic Bible study. But also sending love to 3 princesses in 1 Diana Smith. I'm contractually obligated to finish this copyrighted song. Something. Yeah!
Yay!
Yay! Speaking of godlike entities, Disney. I would put them up against Yahweh any day of the week. I'm just saying. In terms of power, money, effect on mythological
value.
structure, entertainment value. I'm just saying, gives them a good run for their money.
Put Pornhub up against Yahweh anytime.
Well, that's a whole different story. Woo, a different story that I would like to transition to Pat Lowinger.
Pat.
Our resident archaeologist, as we needed someone when someone's making such relevant, I'm sure, completely legitimate historical claims like we're going to have tonight.
Yeah.
It does help to have someone like the fantastic Pat Lowinger.
Thank you, Pat.
Woo-hoo!
Thank you. Your confidence is completely misplaced in me, but I'll accept it.
Oh, wait till you see the video. Their confidence is completely misplaced in themselves. Sponsored by Salty Sugar Water. Salty Sugar Water. Give it to your kids so they can slam into other kids and get concussions today. Anyway, sending love also to, well, it's funny.
It's okay. It's all right.
All of us here.
Keep them coming.
Keep them coming. That's what I like to say. Like I said, clean up later, ladies and gentlemen. Have fun now. But also, we are kind of just looking for empirical evidence, which is the one thing that Dale Pastel and other skeptics seem to not be able to get from theists and creationists.
He was in the house, hey Dale.
In the house. You know what's not in the house? I'm going to assume empirical evidence.
Well, but Amy, they're saying you can scientifically prove it, so I mean, it's science. It's science.
And 100%. Better than
100% certainty, Dale. Dale, I guess, apparently will be joining us for church on Sunday.
That's right. I've always been excited.
Imagine Amy's tongue out waiting for the priest to put that wafer on there.
James, I have never heard better sentences than Amy was on her knees with her tongue out, just waiting for that person above her to drop down. I feel like I could hear that every day of the week. It's just good to finally find Jesus.
And twice on Sunday. Well, after yoga class.
That's right. Good to get flexible.
Just remember to stay hydrated.
That's right. Got to stay hydrated. That's salty sugar water.
She might need an IV in her just to keep her going, or rectally infused water.
Listen. Maybe a shake weight competition. But also, we're sending love to, Dave Garr seems to think that this world is, it rhymes with ound. Mound?
He's one of those.
Sound. Round. Holy
you lost
moly.
Your video, Amy. You turned into me.
You lost my video? And of course, at the time I do my little joke, I would never be joking around with such serious content when it comes to... clearly that was big gravity trying to just take us down. trying to
Took Ken Hovind down.
conceal the truth of this supposed thick earth. Yeah, seems like a conspiracy to me.
Dave Guard, he's one of those round earthers. I think Black Female Atheist is also a round earther.
They're NASA shills, and that's the problem. Big gravity. It's always trying to take us
Big
down.
gravity.
Literally. Oh, dad jokes always accepted here. As many as we can get, ladies and gentlemen. But also sending love to the lead hyena of the pack. Scotto. Even though the religious, or at least a lot of creationists, seem to look down on other animals, because they have dominion.
Cackling hyenas.
I know, listen, the Lion King did the hyenas in. I feel bad. I love the Lion King, okay? It's Shakespeare in another format. Cool. Nonetheless, hyenas are awesome, ladies and gentlemen. Very awesome. And matriarchal. I mean, how cool is that?
I was waiting for it.
So much feminism. But also
biblical feminism.
Biblical feminism. But also, as we look at our Skeptic Bible study, we're sending love to Radios! Because, the Bible tends to get a little, thou shalt stabbeth your brother right in the throat for that interfaith marriage. And you're like, oh, okay, that's moral. No, these are the good guys. Theory. It makes complete sense. Why wouldn't you kill an interfaith couple except for the fact that it makes God angry? I don't know. Maybe Yahweh should go to a therapist or some shit. But we're sending love to
Regos.
And last, but certainly not least, we're sending love to Rachel Holland.
Thank you, Rachel.
I'm still contractually obligated to finish this song. Woo! Reminding us, of course, that the good book would never promote biblical slavery. Honestly, it's something that would last the test of time. And so I really don't think there's any historical accuracy. Honestly, we would if there was any truth to that, I feel like there would have ended up being a war that was like super civil. Like two sides just really just having a big disagreement if you think about it.
Both of them holding the Bible too.
Both of them saying that the Bible supported their side. That's right. No, that's silly. But yes, sending love to Rachel Holland and sending thank yous to all of our Patreons.
Thanks,
you are who enable us to make all of this fun content along with the people in chat, the mods and viewers like you. And with that, boo-doo-boo, boo-doo-doo, before we get to tonight's video in which we will see the other viewpoint, dun dun dun, that's right, scientifically proving Jesus is the Son of God. Which is something hard to do since he seems keen on not coming back from the dead. Or at least not coming down to be empirically tested in any manner. A shame, because you would think in all-powerful being would find scientific testing easy, laughing with each miraculous physics-bending event that they accomplish before our puny eyes. However, this never happens. What we get is claims from thousand-year-old religious texts that don't really amount to anything but hearsay. Jesus was born a virgin? Was he? Because I don't think virgins can give birth. Unless they're female clones of hermaphrodites, like in some species of lizards. In which case, they deliver baby space lasers. Can we also appreciate just how odd the son of a god is? As if that's a normal position at the PTA meeting. Oh, Tammy, who's that over by the muffins? Him? Shucks, that's the son of God. All hail, Cthulhu Jr. May his tendrils fill us with fear. Though these religious claims don't come from nowhere. It was all the rage back in the day. Just ask the Greeks and the Romans, whose deities were having a lot of sex in the city. However, Jesus, coming back from the dead, walking on water, turning that same water into wine, those are not verifiable claims. Not only do they break the laws of nature, but the one guy who the claim could be done by is MIA. Even though his followers will tell us he's just around the corner. If that's the case, then I'm going to need to ask my yoga teacher, Jesus, to march his butt off the mat and into the lab. Because when someone tells me they can 100% without a doubt scientifically prove Jesus is the Son of God, I'm going to be 99% skeptical. It's because extraordinary claims require an extraordinary amount of evidence. Or tacos. Thank you. And all right, with that, we're going to two lovely skeptics before we hear the opposite position and then go into the open mic. But James,
oh yeah,
we are midnight ranting on scientifically proving that Jesus is the Son of God. I hope you're doing well. And what are your thoughts?
Well, so I have to, I got to take responsibility for this tonight. This is my fault because I baited Amy into this because I know that Amy can't resist a video that claims 100% proof, scientific proof, no less. So, yeah, I'm taking the blame for that. Hey, Oz. Hey, everybody. We got Titan in the house. We got KCA Randy. Yeah, I'm here. Amy was doing her monologue, but let's get to the video.
Woo-hoo. Thank you so very much, James.
Oh, yeah.
And all right, with that, we got our special guest host with us tonight, Pat Lowinger. I hope you are doing well, and we are Midnight Ranting on scientifically proving Jesus is the Son of God. Before we hear the other side, what is your thoughts?
Well, I'm looking forward to watching the video. I just want to correct one thing you said. Actually, there were a lot of sons of gods in the ancient world, or at least lots of claims of sons of gods. I can think of about 40 off the top of my head, just in Greek mythology alone. Achilles, son of a nymph, Helen of Troy, another divine being, Heracles. We can keep going down the list. If you want, we can do that later. But the comparison is pretty interesting, though. All these divine beings have, in many cases, miraculous stories of their conception, early life, and ultimately what they accomplish, both for and in some cases against mankind. So I do think it is kind of interesting. Again, nothing new to see here at the time of Christ. Mythologies like this were very common, Greek, Roman, and and even Egypt has a few demigods, right, in their own mythology. So again, this is not anything. Gilgamesh, for example, is in ancient Mesopotamia is a person that's semi-divine, or a demigod. So again, there are all kinds of demigods running around all over the place in the ancient Mediterranean in their mythology.
And if I could just say, I wasn't saying it wasn't common. I was just saying it's weird. Because I think they did take it from the Greeks and Romans. It's almost weird to think about it from an outsider's perspective. I just think that it's odd that an all-powerful deity would have a son. I think it makes complete sense with everything that all the other mythologies that we've heard. And that it makes sense completely where it developed, because I think absolutely, like you were saying, I think you can see its inspirations from the cultures that surrounded it.
Yeah, you definitely can. I mean, there's a lot of different archetypes we could use. Like again, Orpheus, Pyrrha, Theseus, Asclepius, Deucalion, Dionysus. I don't want to keep doing this, so stop me at any point. Memnon, Minos, Peleus. Shit. I'm gonna have to look back at my list, but there's a lot of them. But again, Harmonia is another one, right? Daughter of Ares and Aphrodite, right? So I mean, there's all these demigods, right, going around that are really important. So Perseus, I think I already mentioned him, but yeah, that's it. I'll keep going. Bellaphairon. So if you want to.
Oh no! And with that, I think what we're gonna do is we're gonna hear from the other side, or rather, a video by Sling and Stone called "Scientifically Proving Jesus is the Son of God." 100% proof. Though during the show, feel free to tag Pat, James, or myself at Amy Newman in chat with your thoughts, comments, and one-liners. And when we are done, we will be moving on to the open mic so anyone can tell us about all of the wisdom that I'm sure they are going to experience tonight. And with that, we are moving into the fun.
Yeah, speaking of Morpheus, KCA, can't wait to see the new Matrix, huh?
Oh, I am so looking forward to the new Matrix.
Hard to think it's been since 2003. It's been almost 20 years since we had a Matrix.
Went by fast. And all right, we're starting the fun. If you just joined us, we are scientifically proving Jesus is the Son of God, or at least that is what the video promises to do tonight. So let's get ready to be Christians. I thought we were going to be Muslims in the last video, but man, these guarantees, I would check the packaging.
Yeah, but what are the odds two of them in a row would be wrong?
I know, never be. Two separate religious claims being wrong. I don't.
Back to back.
What would the odds be?
Will prove for a 100%
Let's go,
fact that
Tangelo.
Jesus Christ is from God, that the Bible is divinely inspired, and that Jesus is who he says he is, the Son of God, came to save the world. I make a lot of videos about testimonies of Jesus Christ because I believe they prove Jesus Christ and who he is, and God and who he is. But there's always people who say, oh, there's no proof in someone's testimony, but they somehow fail to see that it's not just these people's words, but it's their life changing around in an instant. People who are drug dealers, just the farthest you can ever be from God, changing their life around in a single instant. That's the proof, not just their words. But this video here will prove to you through the prophecies in the Bible that Jesus fulfilled over 300 of them. And it proves that the Bible is divinely inspired, that he is exactly who he says he is. And it's just a great video. I came across
Which
it
means
researching
Jews
it for
shouldn't
something
exist.
else I'm working on. But yes, this will prove to you Jesus Christ is who he says he is. And this is way more. This is the type of video that will prove to these people that, oh, it's not the testimonies that say anything.
Oh,
Just
it's not the
naysayers, people who
testimonies
can't
to say anything.
look into what the change in people's life, a change that does not happen in Islam, Hindu, any other religion, in an instant someone pulled from the depths of the darkest places. But yeah, they fail to see that. But this video is way better in the sense for those people because it will prove to them the divinity of the Bible and Jesus.
Open neurons.
So enjoy.
I call bullshit already on this guy's claim that no other religion has that type of rapid conversion. I know people that were changed by Buddhism. I know people that were changed by Islam, right? Like, he's just waiting his own argument. He's just dismissing other conversions that aren't in his religious wheelhouse. And I think that this may be the most disingenuous thing we've heard so far, but I think there's going to be a lot more. So I'm going to shut up now and just...
Yeah.
It's selective bias.
Shut up.
No, this is what we want. "300 prophecies, all pointing to Jesus." There we go, right to Jesus. 1 year, 1 sacrifice, 1 man.
Is it the final sacrifice?
This July, he's back and better than ever, but this time it's personal.
With Zap Rousdower.
Yeah, him too.
It has been said that as much as 30% of this book, the Bible, is prophecy.
Made of chocolate.
For example,
Damn it.
Jesus
No, okay.
himself said on multiple occasions, and now I have told you before it comes to pass, that when it is come to pass, you might believe. In other words, he tells us in advance. The evidence that Scripture gives that Jesus of Nazareth is the Messiah is prophecy.
How can we know that Jesus
I
existed at
also,
all?
prophecy is one of the weakest forms of evidence. Like, the vaguity of, like, there will be a war. Oh, thanks, holy text. That was
Earthquakes
so
in diverse places.
Hey, Amy, how much change do I have in my pocket?
Oh, I don't know. Maybe.
Give me a prophecy.
Okay, here we go. $4.52.
Shit, you're actually gonna be off, but so it's
Come on,
like
Jesus. Come on,
six
Jesus.
and a half bucks. But that was pretty close. I'm sure if we add it up the right way, we get to 4.
Pat has a part-time job working at an arcade. He's the guy who hands out quarters to the kids.
Well, we turn to history. Historians from that time period. Historians weren't even Christians who wrote about a man called Jesus. Tacitus is
Lots
one
of
of
men.
those historians.
He wrote in his work Annals around AD 115, Christus, from whom the name had its origin, suffered the extreme penalty during the reign of Tiberius at the hands of one of our procurators, Pontius Pilate. And Tacitus was
Okay,
referred
stop
to
here. That's
as
actually
the greatest.
they changed. So just so you know, the issue is that it does say Christus, and then you notice they had in brackets Christ. Well, that's them saying that's who it is. Scholars still, some assert that it is saying Christ and it's misspelled, but Tacitus was highly literate, and it's possibly another person that's not Christ. It's a different person, and there's historians are divided that it's even referring to a historical person. The fact that they actually put his name in brackets and say that it's absolutely definitively speaking of quote unquote Jesus Christ, the guy from Nazareth, is really that it's dishonest academically and even as the text reads itself.
Dishonesty from a creationist? Never.
Historian of ancient Rome. Now, there were others that referred to Jesus and his followers.
Josephus, a Jewish historian, also mentioned Jesus in reference to the trial of James, the brother of Jesus. In his work Antiquities, which was only written about 60 years after Jesus died, about between AD 90 and 95, he wrote, "So he assembled the Sanhedrin of judges and brought before them the brother of Jesus, who was called Christ."
So we have ancient sources, non-biblical sources, that specifically tell us that Jesus was crucified under Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor. Tacitus, Josephus, and many others tell us that he was a real historical figure. This being the case, the question is not, did Jesus of Nazareth exist, but rather, was he who he claimed to be? Was he the Christ, the Savior of the world?
When it comes to the prophecies,
Brian Stevens says Josephus was so convinced Jesus was the Son of God, he remained a Jew.
Exactly. And again, the brother of James, the brother of Jesus, James, the brother of Jesus, who was also the Christ. There's a lot of debate about the possibility of that being an interpretation. And again, there's a lot of debate about that passage. A lot of scholarship's been developed. One of the problems with Josephus' text, it's kind of important for people to understand. The James is a fairly common Jewish name, as is Jesus, Yeshua. And we know in Antiquity of the Jews, James and I were just James. Man, it's getting confusing tonight with all the Jameses and Jesuses.
The other James.
James, you James. He and I were discussing off stage, like, well, how many times does Jesus appear in Antiquity of the Jews as far as a character that's identified by different people, right? That we know are not Jesus, the Nazarene or something like that. There's over 20. So understand that, typically Josephus gives identifiers like, this is Jesus, the son of this person. This is Jesus, the son of this person, who was the son of this person. Very common in Antiquity of the Jews. So you're easily identifying the other non-Jesuses, right? The Jesus no one ever talks about. But it's important to understand that the name was fairly common, and the name was fairly common in Antiquity. And so that's why historians, because pretty much every time one of the associations with a potential Jesus of Nazareth is actually made, it's not in the style that Josephus used for all the other names he cites. It's typically, it looks modified. The subject word relation in the original Greek doesn't match. The flow's off. So it's possible in this passage that he is mentioning James, and that James is just associated with Jesus, right? Like as a follower, and that the whole brother and who was the Messiah is an interpolation, or it's just some James who some early Christian scribe just assumed when they're talking about James in Jerusalem, it must be the brother of Jesus. So they added it in because it doesn't follow Josephus's normal style of how he explained who people were in his text. It's not absolutely certain, but definitely it is suspicious that a Jew who didn't convert to Christianity would refer to Jesus as the Messiah. Typically, Josephus wrote he would detract from people. He would say, this person who some thought was the Messiah or was a false Messiah, right? So the fact he wouldn't add any caveats in there is uncharacteristic of Josephus's normal presentation.
Was he the Christ, the Savior of the world?
when it comes to the prophecies of Jesus, one of the most remarkable things is what takes place when you take those prophecies of Jesus and you work them out mathematically. Now, there has been a mathematician who's done that. Peter Stoner famous mathematician, went in, looked at how many prophecies there were, 300 prophecies. And then as he broke down those prophecies, he said, let me just take 8 of them and figure out what's the likelihood of
I feel like
8
they're
of
just making up the math as they go along here.
these prophecies
Yeah.
in one person's life.
So Professor Stoner gives us an illustration. It helps us to understand the nature of probability. So let's just say that 1 in every 10 men that you meet has a bald
Oh
head.
my.
And 1 in every 100
I'm
men.
sorry. I got excited when he said that. 1 every 10 men has a bald head.
Every
Gotcha.
10 men that you meet has a bald head.
You like that, huh?
And 1 in every 100 men that you meet happen to have a missing finger. You want to find out how many men are there that I'm going to bump into that actually have a missing finger and a bald head. So what you do is you multiply the first 2 figures, and then you have your answer. 1 in every 1,000 men that you meet have a missing finger and a bald head.
Peter Stoner
Really?
presented his
Unless you go to a lumberjack camp
and try to
where
find
everybody has a bald head and is missing a finger.
Yeah, I'm trying to understand how he got from there to Jesus.
Well, I just think it's funny because they're again, why'd they only pick 8 prophecies? Is it because maybe there's some misses they don't want to talk about, but they want to say, oh yeah, this is the problem. I'm just gonna be quiet for a while.
to see what was the probability that one man could come out of all the men that existed.
All right, now they're just setting me up for jokes. What is the probability? Just one man, ladies and gentlemen, and only if he had permission.
In the history of the world, and it fulfilled exactly every single prophecy.
One of the prophecies that Peter W. Stoner
What all the
mentions
religions claim,
is Zechariah 9:9, which reads, "Rejoice greatly, O daughter of Zion. Shout aloud, O daughter of Jerusalem.
Shout
Behold,
aloud.
He is coming to you. Righteous and having salvation is he, humble and mounted on a donkey, on a colt, the foal.
Mounted on a Newman."
The question is
Oh
how many
my.
people in Earth's history have been kings? And of those individuals, how many have ridden on a donkey into Jerusalem?
Well, I don't know. Neither did.
All you have to do, be son of a god, ride on a donkey, be a king. I feel like these are very small bars.
Okay, well, so let's do some history here. Horses were fucking expensive. Carts were fucking expensive. Donkeys aren't that expensive. Fucking Mary, according to the biblical account, Mary rode one, right, on her trip back from Egypt to Bethlehem, right, or wherever she was going, depending on which version of the bullshit story you read. So if donkeys were ubiquitous in ancient Roman Palestine, people had donkeys because they were cheap and they could pull carts and they could do work. So somebody riding into town on a donkey just means he was a poor SOB who couldn't afford a horse. That's all it means.
That's it. But it's not an amazing claim. It's not a unbelievable claim.
Well, it's like saying your friend drove to Vegas in a Yugo.
Or even a Honda.
Right. Awesome.
So they decided to assign an absurdly high number. They decided 1 out of every 100 men who ever lived rode into Jerusalem as a king on a donkey, of all things. I mean, 1 in 100. This is obviously absurdly high, but that's the point. Stoner effectively buffered his calculations and thus his conclusions against objections that he had biased his calculations.
Of course, they're just taking everything the Bible says as literal fact, that it all actually happened.
Was Micah chapter 5 and verse 2.
In Micah 5 verse 2, there's an incredible prophecy that is given hundreds of years before the
PhD archaeologist, apparently.
Pinpointing exactly the place.
I mean, this would be like going through Moby Dick and taking a character and taking everything he does and saying, oh, what are the odds somebody would do all these things in the book? Those are incredibly small odds that one person would do all those things.
I just want to say before we insult him too much that his tie, he has fantastic taste in fake books. I just want to just put it right on the table, right out there. But
Whose
besides
bust is that on the wall?
I don't know. That's funny.
Any idea, Pat? Any guess?
Oh, sorry, what?
Whose bust that was on the wall?
I can't see from. I really
Yeah,
can't.
I think
tell.
that's a little too.
Is that Caesar?
Pinpointing exactly the place where Jesus would be born. It states, "But you, Bethlehem Ephratah, though you are little among the thousands of Judah, yet out of you shall come forth to me the one to be ruler in Israel."
What's amazing is the fact that there are two Bethlehems, two cities called Bethlehem in Israel. One in the northern portion of the kingdom, one in the south.
I don't know why that's amazing because I grew up near a town called Bethlehem. I got McDonald's there, so don't know what you're talking about. Cool.
And of course, that prophecy was never fulfilled. They're giving that one a pass because Jesus didn't rule anything. They're just telling you, oh, don't worry, he will one day when he comes back.
After he gets cigarettes, he's coming back.
Right.
Promise you.
They're counting that as a hit, but is that even a hit?
Shane says, I looked at these guys' videos, and they're all Seventh-day Adventists. They seem to come from two different SDA universities, one in Texas, one in Tennessee. That's interesting. So we're maybe listening to Seventh-day Adventist doctrine.
Yeah, so far.
I pulled up Hassel's credentials. I mean, he attended real schools, got his PhD from real institutions, and they were secular, right? So he got his PhD from University of Arizona. So
there you go.
Not that
used to live not too far from there. But that's always interesting. And oh, there goes my fantastic video again. But I just exactly. But we are sending love out there on the interwebs. This is what a lot of creationists do sometimes, is, they get people from the secular world to comment on, I don't know if I would say this is out of his scope, but I'm not sure if he could accurately,
No, so Dr. Hassel, I'm going to use his proper credential. He is from an Adventist school. He teaches archaeology at, he actually teaches Near Eastern Studies and archaeology at a Southern Adventist university. So, I mean, he teaches at a school that is obviously religiously inclined.
Exactly. Well, it's like people you never want to hate. I like Sal. Sal is clearly an educated guy who has a lot of credentials and put his heart and metaphorical soul into his academic career. That being said, I think a lot of the people that he works for and the research that he does has a goal. And I'm not sure that's the right thing that you always want to have as an academic. You're trying to remove that bias, not bring it in with. But they're smart guys. They're smart theists that help run the world. It's just complicated because we have to deal with stuff like this. And in fact, if you just joined us, we are watching Scientifically Proving Jesus is the Son of God. In fact, this is supposed to be 100% proof. 100%. Not none of this no fat or even low fat. This is 100% proof.
This specifies which Bethlehem. This specifies Bethlehem Ephratah, which is Bethlehem in Judah. So the prophecy is very precise. But in addition to that, when you think about Mary and Joseph, Mary finds out that she's pregnant. She's in Nazareth. And yet suddenly this decree comes out. This census is being proclaimed by the Romans.
That I don't think ever happened.
Go back to the birthplace of the husband. And so Joseph makes his way to Bethlehem and Ephratah.
They have to take their family back to Bethlehem. Joseph has to be taxed.
Okay, so one more time for the historically illiterate. Okay, this is not how Romans did fucking censuses. Census was a taxation thing. You stayed at your house so the Romans could come and count your shit to tell you how much money you owed. If you left the province, you were a tax evader. Do you fucking get it? Like, even if first of all, the census didn't occur in the region they're talking about, but I'll just fuck it, right? 6 AD, we'll talk about it later. But this is the problem. Like, this is not how Romans did censuses. You stayed where you were from, so they knew their population. The census was done to put people on a roll. You didn't leave your, like, imagine this.
Go
the
back
IRS
to where
shows
you were
up
born.
and go, hey, I know you're coming. The IRS is coming to count all your shit at your house and your bank accounts and all that, but you're going to go to your neighbor's house and fucking do that. IRS would be like, no, we're going to your house. That's exactly what the Romans did. And this just shows how they ignore the historicity. And why do we know? Because the Romans, like, we don't have it about this account in 6 AD exactly what happened. I mean, we do have some Roman records, but we know Romans ran censuses and taxation in other parts of the Roman Empire. And so you're asking for a huge amount of leeway and special consideration and special pleadings, if I may be so bold, in order for you to even get this to pass the smell test, which it doesn't pass at all within a historical context. I'm done ranting.
Jesus is born in Bethlehem.
The prophecy fulfilled
don't worry.
to the very, very place.
I'm sure we'll hear
where Micah,
more silliness.
hundreds of years earlier, predicted it to happen. It was just remarkable when you think about all the circumstances.
Oh, remarkable.
So Stoner and his students, they decided that they wanted to figure out, in the light of the world's population, how many people have actually been born in the city of Bethlehem. 1 out of every 280,000 people was a very conservative estimate that they found mathematically of how many people have actually been born in Bethlehem.
Now, another prophecy they looked at is found in the 53rd chapter of the book of Isaiah. He was oppressed and he was afflicted, yet he did not open his mouth, like a lamb that is led to the slaughter, and like a sheep that before its shearers is silent, so he did not open his mouth.
Stoner brings this out, that Jesus was a just man, condemned to die, and he said not a word. Not one word.
Of course not. The Bible tells us so,
How
right?
many have done that? Well, his class didn't know. Of course not. How could you know? So here again, they assigned a conservatively high number. For the purposes of their calculations, they said, okay, how about 1 in every 1,000 men who ever lived were both wrongly accused of a crime and during their trial chose to speak no word in their defense.
And then as he broke down those prophecies, he said, let me just take 8 of them and figure out what's the likelihood of 8 of these prophecies being fulfilled in one person's life. So just with those 8 prophecies, he said the probability of one person fulfilling all 8 was 1 in 10 to the power of 17. That's like taking silver dollars.
So I just have to
We give
pause
more bad probability analogies here.
because we're about to go into, probabilities that he can't even know. My question to you would be, Pat, someone comes up to you and says, how do you answer all of these prophecies that the Bible has fulfilled?
Honestly, this is like asinine. It really is. I mean, you get whatever.
Is it?
I'm just gonna shut the fuck up. No, I mean, it's. This is like you're creating your own statistics, right? This is like the worst. Again, this isn't Bayesian analysis, but this is the worst conflation, and like they're trying to like math proves Jesus. Well, first of all, it doesn't. But I mean, this is the other issue too. They're saying Jesus said nothing at his trial, right? Okay. Well, which account are they using? Because different accounts, Jesus says a different amount of stuff, right?
He didn't say nothing.
Right. It's he actually gets slapped, right? I think it's in John, right? But he's giving indirect answers to the questions. I mean, so which account are you going to use of Jesus' trial to say he didn't say anything? Oh, the one that says he didn't say anything. Not the ones where he actually gave some witty responses where he got popped in the face for giving him some lip, or the ones where he actually answers the questions. Mysteriously I am who they say. That's what they say I am. But those are answers to questions. So the silence is only in one account. So by your own analogy, Jesus failed because the majority of accounts that you're using actually says he at least mouthed off, and in some cases actually talked. So again, this is the kind of shit that drives me nuts.
Yeah, like Titan says, if you are omnipotent, the odds are actually 100. There was never a chance you were going to fail, and your math is almost just amusing an attempt of a omnipotent God that was always going to have it happen. But keep on sending comments, thoughts, and one-liners in. Brian Stevens says, this is nonsense. There are things that happen to us every day that have 1 in 10,000 probabilities occurring. You can do the same nonsense calculations of anything in our lives. Yeah.
Well, just because I pulled it up real quick, like in Mark, which is again our earliest source that we rely on, where people are putting words in Jesus's mouth. When he's asked, "Are you the Messiah?" Right? He says, "I am, and you will see the Son of Man." That's not remaining silent. I mean, in Matthew, he actually has, he has a different answer. But again, he talks about being the Son of God. In Luke, he actually, you won't believe him. And Jesus then answers, and then they ask him again if he's the Son of God, and he says, yeah, you say that I am. So different accounts say different things. I just think it's hilarious that they use the account, they use John, right, where he kind of is the, I don't know. John actually, Jesus says quite a bit, but it just, whatever. It drives me nuts.
It's all over the
They're
place.
saying he remains silent. Remaining silent means pleading your Fifth Amendment rights. Like, that's what it means. And he didn't do that. He gave them an answer saying, well, I'm the Son of Man, which can be interpreted as I'm the Son of God or whatever. I mean, that's how Christians interpret it. So he didn't remain silent.
But it's not like they're just taking somebody, like if you sat there right now, Amy, and you said, I'm going to predict that there's going to be a guy who's going to do these things. They're looking at what the gospel, what the story of Jesus is, and picking out things that we know it says he did, and then assigning that probability, then picking out something else that it says he did because it says he did, and then saying, oh, look at that, how crazy he meant. Well, of course it does. You're looking at the Gospels and you're picking out things that it says he did and trying to make it seem like it's impossible.
Yeah. I mean, if you have where the ending is, and you're just going to try to pick your beginning.
I mean, you could pick out, look at Michael Jordan's career statistics and say, just imagine that. Look at his points per game, and then look at his rebounds per game, and what are the odds of a guy playing that many seasons as having both of those numbers? And then, look at his free throw percentage. Wow. How many players, like 1 out of 10,000, would have that exact free throw percentage? And then Michael Jordan is God. But then so is Ron Harper. So is Dan Marley. And yeah.
All over Texas.
They covered the entire state. And on one of those coins, somewhere in the state, you have a particular coin marked with a black X.
And you put it randomly, stir it up somehow, and
why not a black A?
Covered 2 feet deep with these silver dollars, and you send a blind man in. The probability that he, which is
always ridiculous things like this,
state of Texas, reach down on his first try and come up with this marked silver dollar, is the probability that one man could fulfill all 8 of these prophecies about Jesus.
Now, not only that, but it actually,
Okay.
he went
I know a group of people that disagree. They're called the Jews, along with basically all of the other people that don't think your prophecies, basically just your religious group. And if you think that all 8 prophecies have been fulfilled, write a published paper about it.
Right. I think, I think one of the good arguments for this, they keep using sources that say they knew Jesus was the Christ, right? Like Josephus, and then these other people talking about him. I think the most telling thing is they're talking about the power of Jesus's statements, the power of his manifestation, who he was. The funny thing is, again, I think the Testimonium Flavianum is largely a Christian. It was an interpolation. It was a false insertion in the text to give some historical credibility to Jesus. I think the later testimony about James, quote unquote, the brother of Jesus, I think that text was altered. So I'm but if you believe the Josephus account is right, and that he worked miracles, and Josephus is saying all these things positively about Christ, despite all that evidence and attestation, one of the best Jewish historians of the period denied the divinity of Christ wholesale, never converted, and kind of talks about how good other people were. Like, this is the important thing to remember, is that Josephus didn't convert. At least we don't have any reason to believe, because later historians, later church fathers talk about Josephus having remained a Jew. People that would know, right? So, I mean, this is just the most flagrant bullshit. I mean, it really is. I mean, but I don't like the fact they're pulling out history degrees and trying to teach theology as history.
But also, I am sending love. Couldn't agree more, Pat. And I'm also sending love to chat. I see Titan, Jor, Anus, Norfolk, Sigma, Skywatcher, and Ox, who says, arguments, nothing but words. Proof is fact. And the fact is, the Bible is a book of man's lies. I would definitely say it's a book of man's fables. That's what I definitely know. And so we're sending love. Keep on sending in those comments. We're going to read as many as we can on screen if you tag me in chat at Amy Newman. So Pat and James both see it. Oh, baby, I like being tagged. And we like saying hi to everybody as we move along. We are watching the other side of scientifically proving Jesus is the Son of God, and we have been offered 100% guarantee, which, we always love.
And he said, all right, let me see if I take 48 of these. 48
and shove them up my...
What's the probability
what are we talking about?
that one man in the history of the world could fulfill just 48 of these prophecies? And the number was a staggering one man out of one dude. 157 zeros after it. That number is so big, just to give you an idea.
That's more atoms in the universe.
Can I tell you where they pulled this out from? It would be a tuchus this big. You see the numbers on your screen, ladies and gentlemen? Can you imagine how big this tuchus is? This is where this number was pulled from. Look at all those zeros.
Yeah. Scientists have determined that there are
a visual representation.
One with 80 zeros after it, atoms in the entire universe. That's not just our planet or our solar system or our galaxy, but the entire universe only has one with 80 zeros after it.
There's not even enough atoms in the universe in order to hold that number. Now, this answers the question about some people say, well, maybe a lot of people have met these prophecies. Maybe it's not just, Jesus that you.
Also, I love this claim because this dude is making the fact that Jesus fulfilled prophecy more accurate than a lot of our hard physics answers that we have, physical laws. So good luck with that, buddy.
Have a whole bunch of people who meet all of these prophecies, but that's just not possible.
It's so mind-boggling. It's so impossible. And that's not even close to the probability of what it would be to fulfill 48, which is 1 with 157 zeros after it. Staggering. Staggering. That's only 48 prophecies.
I'm staggered.
300.
What
She's
you've got
staggering.
is you've got something so remarkable that the whole universe can hold it. In fact, this is what Peter Stoner said. He said, any man
I don't know
who
what that
rejects
means.
Christ as the Son of God is rejecting a fact proved perhaps more absolutely than any other fact.
Any other fact. There we go. Look at that. Like, what chutzpah. They hide this in humbleness. That's what I love, too. My, how humble they are to say that it's the most important, well-known fact in the universe. Because, once again, humble.
Humble pie.
It's one thing to analyze a
Meek
number
and
of
mild.
prophecies that specifically talk about the life and character of Christ, but what if there was a prophecy that made all of these other prophecies date sensitive? Meaning, what if there was a prophecy that specifically told us when all of these prophecies would have to be fulfilled? That prophecy we find in Daniel chapter 9.
I would like to know, is it like right now or soon or any time that we can put it in a lab? Or... And comment from Shane. What are the odds that Darth Vader fulfilled the prophecy of bringing balance to the Force? You know, it could be true.
And what are the odds he would do that while being from Tatooine and while having Obi-Wan Kenobi be his teacher and while knowing Yoda?
Are we talking about in a Force-limited universe or a universe in which the Force has, ultimate, expansive properties like an economic system?
We have to check our midichlorians. And on that note, we are having fun in scientifically proving Jesus is the Son of God, as you do, 100% proof, not just 50% or even 1%. I know. No, this is the full.
We find
Chapter
they
9.
find our lack of faith disturbing.
Exactly.
We are given a fascinating prophecy hundreds of years before the time of Jesus that pinpoints the exact time of when the Messiah would be anointed.
We have here the most precise prophecy about the
Of
Messiah.
Amy's yoga class.
When the
When
Messiah
it would be.
of anywhere in the Old Testament.
That's right.
Reading here in verse 25.
It's just such a weird claim because, once again, it's like a prediction in the past is going to make a prediction in the past. But that's not really how a scientific claim works.
Therefore, and understand that from the going forth of the commandment to restore and to build Jerusalem unto the Messiah the Prince shall be 7 weeks and 62 weeks. The street shall be built again, and the wall even in troublous times.
Now what does that mean? That word for week in Hebrew can either mean weeks of days or it can mean weeks of years.
Daniel recognizes
weeks.
his prophecies that one day is a year. Therefore, he knows that this 70 weeks is 70 weeks of years, which means 490 years.
The way it works is like
Reminds
this.
me of 7 Days guy.
There are 490 years. We need to find the starting point. That's the key.
They're just pulling all this out of their ass.
I know it's not even
right
lying.
out of their ass.
Yeah.
But they're so
see,
confident.
First of all, very few actual secular biblical scholars and textual critics. I really wish Dr. Jim Majors was here. We know when Daniel was written, 3rd and 2nd century. They're going to put it way back early, right? So they get this 490 mark. You watch. There'll be some mathematical manipulation. I have not watched this part of the video, but I can tell you now, it's bullshit, and I haven't even seen it. So let's watch it.
From the decree that would restore and rebuild Jerusalem, then Messiah would come onto the stage of human affairs. So we find the starting date, we go forward into the future, 483 years, and we have found the date in which the Messiah is supposed to begin his work on planet Earth.
The beginning date of the 7-week prophecy is obviously 457 BC. Now, there are some
Obviously.
decrees that have gone out at this time,
Yeah.
but this is the one that invokes
457, how off is that?
We know that this is the beginning date, 457 BC.
All right, if you take 457 BC, and now you come forward 483 years, what do you get? 27
Bullshit.
AD. As the time when, according to Daniel 9, the Messiah would come. What does that mean?
Hot.
The prophecies are about a Messiah.
Sounds
What
like a good
is
night.
Messiah? The Hebrew people wouldn't know what that means, but what does that mean to us?
The word Messiah comes from a Hebrew verb which means to anoint. So Messiah is anointed. And in ancient times, that was the way someone was marked for office.
So the question arises, was Jesus of Nazareth anointed in AD 27?
The Messiah appears and becomes the anointed one precisely at that point in AD 27, as Daniel prophesied in Daniel 9. What does that mean? He would begin his ministry. He would appear in that year. Well, what happened in 27 AD? Luke
crazy
chapter
shit.
3, verse 1. Luke 3,
Get
verse 1.
baptized? Is that what they're saying?
Year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar. And then it goes on to describe Jesus' baptism.
The 50th year of Tiberius happened also to be the date of AD 27, the exact year when Jesus Christ was baptized.
Oh, yeah, baby.
So we have the Jordan River and we have John
Look, I just like hot men
Jesus
getting
comes
dipped in
to
water.
John,
So
and
we're
John
getting to good stuff.
baptizes Jesus. Now, the word baptize comes from the Greek word baptizo.
Baptizo means to immerse, to dip.
It was a term widely used as in the immersion of
Wait,
dye.
are you saying we can baptize our chicken nuggets? Because I am all for this. Yes.
And cloth, that they would fully take that cloth and immerse it in that dye.
Dude, Jesus-shaped chicken
completely
nuggets?
covering
Now we're
it.
getting there.
So Jesus was completely submerged and brought out. And when he was brought out, the light from God shone upon him, and the Holy Spirit descended on him as a dove. And that is when Jesus, the Messiah, was anointed.
And so we can clearly see that there's a shadow of a doubt that nearly 500 years before the event took place, it was predicted and fulfilled in the life of Jesus Christ.
So
Because
Jesus,
the Bible says so.
Immediately after he's
Right in
baptized,
this book.
and John the Baptist confesses that he's the Lamb of God that takes away the sins of the world, Jesus goes to preach his first sermon. He says, the time is fulfilled, for the kingdom of God is at hand. Repent and believe the gospel.
So when Jesus came and
And
proclaimed the
3
time was
Fridays.
fulfilled,
Fries
what he
on
is
Friday.
indicating is that Daniel's great prophetic time clock has struck the zero hour. It is time for the Messiah to arrive.
It's fascinating enough that the Bible tells us when the Messiah would be anointed. But the Bible even goes further to tell us the year when the Messiah would be crucified.
Daniel 9 predicted precisely when Jesus becomes Messiah. Now, there are some people in the early Christian age who didn't like the
Seems
fact
like
that
they're
so many
making
people
this
were
all
becoming
up.
Christians because of this passage.
Certain Jewish literature, they have a curse on you who study this prophecy, because I think it's very powerful evidence pointing to Jesus as the Messiah.
And they were very
talking
threatened by this
about
passage
Jesus?
because it was too overwhelming, that it pinpointed the individual who was supposed to come to the very year. And what happens in the rest of the passage?
I wish I could pinpoint when I'd come on a given year.
What does it say?
The prophecy of Daniel 9 tells us that in the middle of the week, in other words, about 3.5 years, into the last
It's true.
week or 7
We're
days.
insulting them, but we really need to understand the context. If we could just understand the context, we wouldn't be making fun of the Bible. Context.
Daniel's 70-week prophecy, the Messiah would be cut off, but not for himself.
So 3.5 years after the baptism, the anointing of the Messiah, he would be cut off. At the end of the sacrifices would happen. 3.5 years after
Jesus
AD
was
27.
then cut off from his sugar daddy. It was kind of sad, but you know, gotta do what you
Did he
gotta
ever
do.
get over it?
He never did. He never did. His hair, however, was beautiful.
Brings us to the spring of AD 31.
AD 31, the spring of AD 31, and particularly the Passover in the spring of AD 31, would be the Passover.
Let me tell you about the Passover of 81, ladies and gentlemen. We had Sheba over here passed out. We had Benjamin over here. He was going crazy. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, don't levy your bread. Don't levy your bread. That's all I'm going to say.
At which Jesus was crucified.
And how significant it is,
Well,
we discover that after a
that
ministry
too,
of
but
about 3.5 years,
silly
Jesus was
Jesus.
crucified in the spring at Passover time of the year AD 31. In other words, Jesus, the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world, was
The last time we
sacrificed
take
for our
LSD.
sins, just at the same time of the year that the Passover lamb was sacrificed.
The word cutoff in Hebrew is karat.
So can we just talk real quick? Like, stop how this is all bullshit. So one of the problems is they're having to backtrack a lot of stuff. Now, let's just take one event, and they're saying, well, look at all this stuff in the Old Testament. Jesus has to be at 0 because he gets baptized at 27 CE, and he's got to die in 31.5 CE because it makes all their timeline. But all the, one of the accounts they're talking about is this census of Quirinius, right? The proctor of Roman Syria, right? We know when that fucking happened, like within a year, so plus or minus 1 year, and that's 6 CE. Wait a minute. How old was Jesus during the census? Oh fuck, he wasn't even born yet.
Picky.
So the two accounts, one account dumps their other account, right? So this is why this shit fails, right? Like if you're going to be that specific, right? Oh, well, it says this year and half of this, and
over here we're using
square root of this
numbers.
Right. Square root of Jesus's birth divided by the number of babies his mama had. Whatever numerology you're going to get into. Well, when you say Jesus was born at 0, and we know that according to your text he was born at 5 or 6, and that's just being generous, then your whole system fails, right? Because you're saying, no, this is the account of Jesus, and the reason Jesus was in this region is because this Roman governor was doing X, Y, Z. And why do we know this? Is because this census that is going to happen is going to be the cause of a rebellion in Galilee. Judas the Galilean is going to rebel because of this census, right? Again, Judas the Galilean. Wait, Pat, say it's not true. Yes, this is all part of it, right? There's these other historical people. We find them in Josephus. So these timeline errors are ultimately a failure, but they're marking them down as a hit. And that's for people that are watching this to really understand. I mean, you have to really get into, not everybody has the time to go out and get a degree in ancient history, right? But this is the kind of shit that just makes me just angry.
Well, and I'm glad that you're on, because these are the types of things that aren't even lies. They're bullshit. And I feel like unless you are in the technical community, I think that a lot of the language, it would just go over people's heads.
They get away
People
with
would
it.
say,
They
well,
get away
it's
with it.
English,
Now,
but it's hard to pinpoint the bullshit.
Well, the funny thing is like part of their argument earlier in this video was the fact that Jesus' parents, Joseph and Mary, are going to this region because of the census, right? So they're going for the census, but they know, because they're historians, they know that this census took place at 5 or 6 CE, right? But they're not telling you that. They're hiding that part, right? Which would mean Jesus is older at 30 than they want to tell you, right? But they're not telling you that. They're taking the hits and lying and misrepresenting the misses, or just obfuscating with their responsibility to tell you that they could be wrong because of these other issues. And this is why
they're fudging the math. They basically, it was almost like it looked good at the very beginning, but then maybe because 1, 2, and almost 3 were correct, but then 4, 5, and 6 were hits, and so they're like, well, let's just go on to 7, and we'll hope the math keeps on working out.
Right.
And I mean, what it's important to say what's happening here. Well, this is that the guy the people who were writing these gospels, they knew there was a census around that time. They didn't remember or know exactly what year it was, so they just fudged it.
Right.
Like, we know there was a census around this time, so
Right.
we're just going to insert that into our story. It's just they didn't know exactly when it was.
Right, and there is issues about when this census occurs, what regions. The Romans were always moving administrative units, like the boundaries of places. I mean, we could just get into the census issue. There's a lot of scholarship on it. We don't have time, but just understand that the dates are off, and we have good records to know when they happened.
And it does make me think, like Shane is saying, this all seems like it came from a particular university. So as the religious conservatives, or I don't know, as the fundamentalists will often say that the media and other people often have narratives, while that may sometimes be true, the funny point seems to be that they often have narratives. And so
I mean, it's
sometimes look for a little bit of projection.
This specific way that they're using the argument might be like from a particular university, but the claims are kind of run-of-the-mill Christian claims that he fulfills all these prophecies, and everything comes together just perfectly. You know, that's run-of-the-mill, but the way they're trying to do it with the probability, that probably came from.
Well, the other thing is that they're not trying to say that here is a bunch of lay people giving their opinion. Is that this video or this presentation, whatever you want to call it, they are saying this is the academic, scientific proof of Jesus. You shouldn't just prove it on a gut feeling. You should prove it because this is the scientific backing. But yes,
but like Pat's saying, they're playing with
the
numbers. They're playing with the facts. They're playing fast and loose. They obviously have an agenda, and it's clear if you're looking for that.
Except the math that works towards your advantages, and the ones that don't fit, well, just throw that out. But we're not going to throw you out because we're sending love to everyone out there on the internet joining us for Scientifically Proving Jesus is the Son of God. Feel free to keep on sending your comments to James and Pat and myself by tagging me at Amy Newman, like Shane just did. With these claims are all based on the book. Cough, cough, cough. No. Based on the book Science Speaks by Peter Stoner. Some of what is presented in the video is almost word for word from the book. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. So it seems to be a little bit of his shilling / presentation for that book. And I always find this stuff interesting when people really do think that their views are scientifically backed, especially their theological views, because I believe, just like in Ghostbusters, those are two paths that should not cross. But we're going to march forward, and at the end of this video, we're actually going to be opening it up for a little bit of open mic, so you can tell us what you thought about all of the wisdom. That's right, baby. Before we go to the after show on Discord, so tons of time for you to tell us about all the wisdom you've been experiencing.
Is used of a divine penalty for sinners back in the books of Moses, particularly Leviticus, Numbers, and so on. The word cutoff in Hebrew is karat. And this verb karat is used of a divine penalty for sinners back in the books of Moses, particularly Leviticus, Numbers, and so on. It's a divine penalty that God himself would administer. It's not simply capital punishment, but it's like a death beyond death. It's like a second death. There is accountability that goes
beyond death, which is a scary concept. I always dislike this whole man, the deity won't even let you die. And Yahweh's a dick. Let no one mince words. But this
He's a
whole
dick.
he just won't even let you die in versions 2.0 and 3.0. Boy, they.
to the afterlife. The person who's cut off doesn't get an afterlife. It's like a second death, a death that goes beyond death. All right, well, now we
Two
understand
deaths for the price of
but
one.
here we have in Daniel 9:26 the Messiah. It uses
That's
the word
Adventism because
Messiah,
they're annihilationists.
on which we get the English word Messiah.
When Jesus went into the Garden of Gethsemane and he was beginning to experience this sundering, this separating from his Father, he said, "My soul is exceedingly sorrowful, even to the point of death." In other words, my soul is dying.
And he's going to be cut off, suffer this
So
terrible
poetic.
penalty? What kind of sin has he done? How could this be? Well, there's only one explanation. You got to put it with Isaiah 53. He doesn't die for his own sins. He dies for the sins of his people. This is not an ordinary death, a first death. This is a second death.
The final moments of Christ's life on earth were quite tragic. His friend betrayed him, Judas.
One of Jesus' own followers, Judas Iscariot, betrayed Jesus for the sum of 30 pieces
For a
of silver.
coupon.
It's amazing to think that.
Isn't the amount vary by the gospel, I believe? The amount of silver Judas got, I think, varies gospel to gospel. It's not exact.
Be 30 pieces of silver, and that's exactly what Judas received for betraying Christ.
He regretted his bargain rather immediately and tried to give the money back, and then went out and killed himself.
So keep in mind that the
Well, that
prophecy says that in
escalated
AD 31 that the Messiah would be cut off or he would be crucified. So Jesus, knowing this, understood that his life would be a mechanism that would offer salvation to the world. Therefore, he was willing to do anything to accomplish his mission.
He was beaten a number of times, as much as possible, that was legal, without actually killing somebody. With skin being torn out of his body with each whip.
Then after this, he had to carry his cross, but that didn't last because he was already, I'm sure he had a lot of blood loss because of the scourging.
Crucifixion, inflicted by the Romans, was the
Not a
most
good
horrible
time.
punishment that anybody could go through at the time. It was a type of torture that is to bring death, but a slow death. People were impaled on a cross or on a pole. Nails were put through their hands and through their feet.
The feet would have been placed together. The nail would have gone, one single nail through both feet, nailing those feet to the cross. And the individual then, as he hung on the cross, would have to lift himself up every single time he breathed on those feet in order to allow his diaphragm to expand.
Also, their blood would be actually burning inside them like a burning sensation. Because of
there are two people like crucified right next to him. I know that they're always like, how could you compare this guy to the other two humans that were suffering exactly the same? And I don't understand any difference, except this guy supposedly couldn't tell a lie. So
He's perfect,
therefore his
yeah.
pain, I know. So
He didn't
silly.
deserve it. The other two deserved it.
Oh, they deserved it. They had it coming.
They were legitimate criminals. Jesus was, of course, not a criminal. He was a political criminal, I guess, is what the narrative.
Yeah, I still, that to me, you're still torturing someone. And then not only that, the other thing I like to bring up, because not only did this a normal high punishment, but a normal thing that they did back then, but ISIS crucified children upside down. Why do I bring this up? Because clearly there are actually worse things than just being crucified. Humans can actually be more sadistic and evil, and so, and yes, and religion. But there are people that have, whether you believe he existed or not, there are people that have been suffered worse pain for, I don't know, us to be alive. I don't know really why they were dying, except for like James said, religion. Shane says it's not fair to deny me of the cross that I bear that you gave to me. Atlantis 3:16. It's true. It's true.
The effect that crucifixion would have on the body. So it was torture in several different stages, and it was completely awful. It was the suffocating, it was the blood hurting, it was the thirst that they were feeling, and it was meant to be exactly that, torture, and then eventually death.
Jesus' death, of course, was not a death forced by the crucifixion. It was not a death of suffocation after days and days of hanging there on the cross. It was not a death of lack of loss of blood. It was not a death because of the physical suffering that Jesus
So
experienced.
what happened?
The way he died was not
Heartbroken?
simply because of the physical pain, but because of a broken heart.
Broken heart
Does the
syndrome.
father turn his back on him? Is that where they're going?
Where the heart actually
Man, I was
undergoes so
joking.
much stress.
I was
that,
joking.
it
Are
looks
you
like
really
the
going
person
to
is having
say
a heart
he died
attack.
of a broken
There can
heart?
be absolutely no physical obstruction in someone's heart arteries, but it is the intense stress levels that can actually cause the body to respond in such a way that there is a physical abnormality, such as this broken heart syndrome.
The emotional pain was tremendous.
Dude.
The pressure.
Dude, didn't even say a heart attack. That man just told me that Jesus died of a broken heart. Really, the nails in him might have had a different say. My lordy.
I mean, they thrust the spear into his side. I mean, yeah.
But James, no, it was he died of a sad heart, just like a soccer mom.
Because if he would give in, the plan of salvation would not be realized.
Broken heart syndrome is also known by the name Takotsubo's disease.
And this is a cardiologist talking about this.
An octopus type trap.
How'd you like that to be your cardiologist, Amy?
I'm trying to understand where the logic is. Like, why are you trying to prove that Jesus died of a broken heart? I feel like
is what the heart looks like when it is undergoing its damage. The patients who have this stress-induced cardiomyopathy or broken heart syndrome, these happen in patients who are undergoing an intense amount of stress. This is not a stress that is minor. So Jesus,
did he do the autopsy on the body? I mean,
he must have
all of the guilt and all of the sins of everyone in this world on his shoulders, and the amount of mental anguish that he was undergoing could definitely have caused this broken heart syndrome.
Yes.
And
every time you've had a dirty thought, Amy, that was on Jesus' mind while he was dying.
I just like only a believer could be like watching a dude get like ah. That's one hand. That's another. And they're like, all right, poke the wound in his chest. And then they hang him up. And then someone looks and goes, yeah, I bet he died of a broken heart. You're like, really? A broken heart. It was all emotional. The screaming and the blood and, him passing out and all that.
I definitely like my demigods like much tougher than this Jesus guy. I mean, Heracles kills a Hydra, Perseus kills fucking Medusa. This Jesus guy, broken fucking heart. I mean,
Broken
come on.
heart.
Yeah.
He's on fucking Tinder and got rejected, and he's bummed.
He's very
Well,
bummed.
Probably Grinder in his case.
It is interesting though that they use 30 pieces of silver, because I wanted to check my reference and make it right. But yeah, that is also the price of a slave in Deuteronomy. Like if you kill someone's slave, that's the price you have to pay. So I think Matthew may have been quote mining. Just saying, because he's the only person that mentions the price.
The chemical levels, again, in the body with that amount of emotional stress would have been enough to trigger something like this to happen.
This triggers me.
Isaiah chapter 53 and verse 6 says, "And the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all." And so from that prediction, many hundreds of years before the crucifixion, we are told that Jesus' death would not be a result of all these physical things that happened, but a result of his separation from his Father, but more importantly, the weight of the sin of the world that crushed his heart, crushed his...
The weight of the world, Amy.
That he paid for there.
Oh my.
And even though he suffers this cutting off, because it wasn't for his own sin, he comes forth from the death from which there is no return to give us salvation and to give us hope. And this is an incredible thing.
So the prophecy of Daniel 9:27 says, in the middle of the week,
I do like how
he will
excited
cause
they
the
are.
sacrifices and the offerings to cease.
For a guy dying.
There's your bullock.
Years after AD 27 brings
Gotta
us to
kill
the
that
spring of AD
young
31,
Sandra Bullock.
precisely when
No
Jesus died on the
blemishes.
cross.
Jesus, about 3.5 years later, in the middle of that last 7 weeks of years, Jesus died. Did he bring the sacrifice?
You know, I've never had a Christian be able to answer, or at least to my satisfaction, when I'm like, would you take Jesus down off the cross if you had a time machine? Most of them would say no, they'd watch him. But I find that evil too, that if you're going and you would just watch your Lord and Savior, as they say, just be tortured for you. Just sit there, popcorn, like, nah, he's dying for our sins.
That's our scapegoat.
Scream,
We
bitch.
got our scapegoat.
Maybe that's why he died of a broken heart.
To an end. Depends what you
They
mean.
love their scapegoat.
When a person had committed a sin,
They do.
he was supposed to bring a sacrifice. Various kinds
Back
of
to
animals
the
were
killing
killed
of
for
the goats.
sacrifice. It was replacement, a substitution being offered for
Run, lamb
Jesus
chop.
was the fulfillment of those sacrifices and symbols. And that's why John the Baptist said, "Behold the Lamb of God, which takes away the sin of the world." And so we don't go to a Hebrew sanctuary. We go in faith to the hill of Calvary there, where the Son of God is dying in our behalf. And as the scripture says, God made him to be sin for us, who knew no sin, so that the righteousness of God may be fulfilled in us.
The death of Christ in the middle of the week, in the spring of AD 31, is without a doubt the most significant, solid historical evidence that Jesus Christ is truly the Savior of the world. It was predicted.
I mean, it's incredible to think that he died just on time, just the way the Bible described. I mean, a prophecy of Daniel hundreds of years earlier, written in the 6th century, predicting that precisely the event of Christ's death.
This was in the middle of the final week of years, which is between 27 AD and 34 AD. Okay? What happened in 34 at the end of the 490 years? This was the time that you read about in Acts chapter 7. In Acts chapter 7, Stephen was a deacon who was filled by the Holy Spirit. He was doing evangelism. And there was
filled, Amy.
The authorities, and he was arrested. He gave an incredible speech, and then he was stoned to death at the end of this time.
The gospel was rejected by the leaders among the covenant people, and it was taken to the Gentiles by the Apostle Paul in fulfillment of the Old Testament prophecy.
According to Acts chapter 15, we see that the boundaries are broken down. Gentiles, other people like me, can come directly to Christ without having to become Jewish first. We can come to him. Jewish people can come to him.
On top.
Hindus and Muslims and
You can come to him, Amy.
people, everybody,
every
can come
week
to him directly as our Messiah. We can all be spiritual descendants of Abraham.
You know, here is a prophet. 500-600
And I will
years
say,
before the
we
event
have
took place.
about 5 more minutes left on this video, and then we are going to be switching into the open mic section. But keep on sending your comments in.
Yeah, I do think it's funny though that these people are admitting that they're Gentiles, they're non-Jews that are now part of this covenant with Abraham, and they've been reconciled. But this is them inviting themselves to someone else's party. Their entire theology is we are now part of the chosen people. No, we're not Jews, and frankly, we're going to be really fucking anti-Semitic in our religion. But what we're going to do is we're going to say we're now the chosen people, and we're going to invite ourselves to the Jewish party, but not do any of the Jewish stuff. And frankly, we're going to hate the people whose house we're in. But it's okay. We'll draw swastikas later.
They love the Jews so much, they just want them to stop being Jews.
Yeah.
And pointing out exactly the ministry of Christ, his death, the destruction of Jerusalem. It is incredible.
Not only does the Bible tell us to the year when he would come and begin his ministry, it tells us where he would be born,
Tells us the year he would come, the hour.
This all adds up to
Second.
something that cannot be manipulated. This had to be divine foreknowledge revealed and prophesied right here in Micah, in Daniel, and then the other prophecies pointing in the nature of what he was going to do, what he was going to accomplish, how he was going to die, all of these different kinds of things. It all comes together to indicate that God really knows what he's doing, and we can have confidence that when he says...
That sounds like such a statement to reassure yourself more than anyone else.
Confidence.
God really knows what he's doing, okay? He really does. Just don't take it from my word. Are you looking at the map? Do you have it? Is it upside down? No. God has it. He knows where we're going. But yes, context.
Confidence.
That he can do that.
But it's the resurrection which, in a sense, puts the seal on this and gives us
sure, wish version of Jeff Goldblum.
Powerful reasons.
Clifford Goldstein.
The whole plan of salvation as revealed in the New Testament.
It has been said that Jesus Christ was the greatest man in history. He had no servants, yet they called him master. He had no degree, yet they called
him... Do they call you master, Amy?
He had no medicines.
Only when we role play.
He had no army, yet kings feared him. He won no military battles, yet he conquered the world. He committed no crime, yet they crucified him. He was buried there too, and yet he lives today.
As I think back on what helped me to become a Christian.
Yeah, they're just assuming that.
It was Jesus Christ. And as I discovered these prophecies as a young person, 15 years of age, coming from a secular background, I was opening up the prophecies of Daniel, going to a Daniel seminar, and I discovered that Jesus had come on time, had died on time, and that now I was confronted with the evidence. What would I do with this Christ? It was proved beyond a shadow of a doubt for me that this Jesus had come.
As I see those things fulfilled in history and even
at least you did your job.
I can be sure as a Christian that the Bible is the Word of God.
The Roman governor Pontius Pilate, he wakes up on that morning and he has no clue whatsoever what he's going to face that day. And what he ends up encountering is the very face of Jesus Christ. Whether or not that's what he expected, that's what he got. It's the same with us. We wake up in the morning and we don't expect that today is the day I might find the evidence that would suggest that I need a Savior and that Jesus Christ was truly the Messiah.
Now I had to figure out what will be my response. As I looked at that information,
send nudes, LOL.
Jesus does exist. If he wants a relationship with me, then I need to find out more about it, to figure out what it is.
And I think that nothing else is more important. It's the most important thing. Everyone owes it to
maximally important
to study these things out, to scrutinize the scriptures for themselves.
And so I began that process. And as I read into my Bible and I read the Gospels, the Bible came alive. And I discovered that relationship. My life is
sounds like a horror movie. I read the Bible and then it came alive. Ah! Stop it! Oh. It became me versus the Bible. Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah.
No.
Amy read Leviticus and then the hand of God came out and tried to stone her. Oh my.
Are we done yet? Is this over?
We are
almost
almost
this
done.
These guys are like almost getting sweet on Pontius Pilate now. Like, Pilate's the good guy. Remember, Pilate's the same guy who was... Romans could be assholes, right? As governors. I mean, they were officers of the state, but they were given unlimited power over life and death within their province, right? Pontius Pilate is one of the few governors removed because he was too excessive in the violence that he placed on the population. Like, what actually gets Pontius Pilate kicked out is the massacre of Samaritan, you could call them pilgrims. They were people trying to find like one of the believed resting spots of Moses. Trying to remember, they were led by a messianic figure by the name of, God, it starts with a D and I can't remember it. I want to say it's like the Sosthenes, but that's not right. But there's some prominent, right? Well, I can't remember every person in every account, right? This isn't my focus period, but there's some Samaritan messianic leader who, again, messianic leader according to Josephus, who says, "Hey, let's go out to this place because we think some stuff, either Moses, some of the artifacts that Moses carried, or some things associated with Moses were buried up on this mountain." Pilate hears about it. He doesn't want the Samaritans rebelling because he believes they find this objects and they're going to say that they've resurrected Moses, right? Resurrected Moses or brought Moses back to life or some type of Moses complex. So this Messiah leader of the Samaritans being Jewish adjacent, he sends soldiers out and has them executed and rounded up for sedition, right? Because they're trying to instill, quote unquote, a leader. So again, this isn't like crazy, right? Like, Pilate was not a fucking good guy, given to bouts of a sympathy and empathy with the people he's having executed. Again, I don't know why we're going
is that what you're saying?
I'm going to look up that name of that Samaritan guy because it's pissing me off. Hold on a second.
And just like Pat said, we are about to be at the end of the video of the other side of tonight's topic of scientifically proving Jesus is the Son of God. But I am going to be sending the link into chat so that if anyone out there on the interwebs would like to join us, you can see it and come on. It looks like James, you about to say something?
Well, they do that because the Gospels depict Pilate as being somewhat reluctant to have Jesus executed, that he really didn't see what the fuss was about. And so the Christians kind of portray Pilate as like he really didn't want to do it, but his hand was being forced, and Jesus could have made a defense for himself, and Pilate probably would have been inclined to release him, but Jesus knew his mission was to die, so he didn't do that. So they kind of make Pilate this more sympathetic figure, I think.
Yeah, well, later he's going to be, remember, in the Coptic Church, Pilate's going to be a secret Christian convert and declared a saint. So there are going to be traditions where Pilate is a secret Christian the entire time and was secretly trying to save Jesus against the heinous evil Jews. But the guy's name, the Samaritan guy, because I had to remember it, is Dosiethos. Basically, he's also known as Nathaniel, right? But he's this Samaritan who leads an insurrection, and ultimately is the reason Pilate's removed from his governorship, because he slaughters these people, men, women, and children.
How many of them were they?
Some accounts. I don't know. I didn't pull up my actual account in Josephus. I was typing Samaritan Massacre Pontius Pilate so I could get the name of the guy, because I couldn't remember the exact record.
Must have been a substantial number of people, though, if it made news to the Roman government.
I mean, you guys go ahead. Now we're going down the rabbit hole of Pilate massacre.
Yeah.
Well, and I have sent the link into chat. I'm going to bring it up on screen, but we are about to head into our open mic in a second as we finish the end of scientifically proving Jesus is the Son of God, or at least the counter view to the three skeptics that we have tonight.
Jesus is standing before Pilate. And the question that Pilate asked...
Oh, no. I saw this on Pornhub. It was hot.
Cynically.
Saw that in yoga class.
What is truth?
That's right.
And surely this is one of the great ironies of history. Pilate says, what is truth? A better question would have been, who is the truth? Because the very one...
Why is Gomorrah?
Who in the sweep of human history claimed to be the very embodiment of truth was standing right there in his midst. And Pilate, because he was swayed by public opinion, he was a slave to public opinion, was unwilling to find out the answer. The question is, are we, unlike Pilate, willing to find out just what is the truth?
Oh, didn't you mean who?
Woohoo! And there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That was a video by Sling and Stone called Scientifically Proving Jesus is the Son of God. 100% proof. So that technically means we're Christians now, I believe. That is how that works, but so I guess we have to convert from being Muslims after converting last week.
Bring Gavin out, have him baptize you.
I tried to look up more on the massacre, and it just says massacre, so we don't know. I think it's alluded to in other sources, but I'd have to start pulling out other reference materials.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to roll into the last few minutes for open mic. We got 30 minutes of time on clock, but if not, we're going to head out in 15 after closing up our open statements and heading out into the Discord of Skeptic and Ranting community server, which you can find in the link below. But I'm sending love both to my co-host James W. and Pat Lowinger, who we're sitting here having fun with, talking about scientifically proving Jesus is the Son of God. Pat, you must come across a lot of historicity questions from Christians in your classrooms. How do you go about dealing with a lot of those questions?
It depends on the question they ask, but typically there's two types of basically general Christians I get. Those that are exploring their own issues with their faith, like, well, I read this, I read that. Can you so their questions are asked kind of in a, what do historians say? And then some are really asserting, like, part of my class, we talk about the early Christian church in a Mediterranean context, and discussions about various sects and different attitudes, different movements, and then there's quite a bit of certitude that comes out, like, oh, it's this, it happened on this day, and it was those Christians who were another sect of Christians that their particular sect didn't like. Well, those were wrong, we were right. And it's the big we. And then, we know Jesus existed. We're absolutely certain. The gospel accounts are as good as any history book. And I try to explain to them that that's really problematic. And then they typically, those that have some background in apologetics, they'll start going through the evidence just like this group did. And then, but there's no there's no internal dialogue with themselves about the evaluation of evidence. And so what I've actually given homework assignments on this to students, like, oh, I want to do a term paper on proving to you that Jesus existed. I go, okay, but what you have to do is you have to compare and contrast. And what I typically do is I'll be in my office and I'll pull another ancient book. So often I'll pull Herodotus or Xenophon or Thucydides, and I'll say, okay, you need to compare and contrast the historicity of this text to the historicity of that text, and I'll grab a few chapters out of it, and then go, this history is saying this. Do you believe everything in it? And then then they go through line by line and go, well, this isn't true because Zeus isn't. And their answer is, well, Zeus didn't do this because Zeus isn't a real god, and if it did happen, it's because the God of Israel manifested to happen, and people misunderstood it as Zeus. And then I basically, I explain to them, you start having these analysis to, it just kind of, it is, then I basically say, so you understand how that's not historiography. You're engaging in apologetics. And then, the few students that have done this, I haven't ever given them a grade on an assignment like that, but we have a discussion, right? And I'm like, so you need to, if you're going to be a historian, if you're actually going to want to go beyond this, these introductory level courses, you can't approach it this way. And they typically get dejected and they end up going to like Moody Bible College. Just kidding. But there are some schools up here that are theologically based that I've actually lost a couple students to Pacific Lutheran University because they didn't want to be challenged by what they considered, corrupted secular views.
Where they can go and they can coddle them and say, it's okay, yes, the gospel accounts are 100% consistent with history.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that is the problem, that if someone has a different or comes in with a presupposition, it is very hard to try and knock that. Well,
I want to be kind of empathetic to these students, though, because I usually get a lot of students between the ages 18 and 20 these are, young people 1 or 2 years out of high school. And so they're right at that indoctrination. They're still confronting a worldview that's changing. So I give them quite a bit of, again, as a Pat, the guy on YouTube, is different than Pat, the guy in the office, right? Because mentoring a student, they don't have to believe in what I believe to pass my course. That's just the reality of it, right?
It's so know the material,
right? And and even then, I can, I don't avoid the material with them, but I allow them to avoid it as far as graded. I give them, I give all students options. You can do this assignment, or this assignment. And they tend to take the ones that aren't going to challenge their worldview.
You don't force them in that position.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. It's not my place to do that.
Yeah, the whole simple adage, you just want your students to figure out how to think, not what to think.
Right. Right, exactly.
And all right, I'm going to keep on giving shout outs. We got about 10 more minutes. We'll wait on here for someone to switch us into the open mic. If not, we're going into the after show at Discord. But it has been a fantastic midnight ranting on scientifically proving Jesus is the Son of God. Pat, I have to thank you, as always, for coming on here, because you definitely added a lot and sorted out some of the technical mumbo jumbo that I think would have went over the two schmucks' head, especially in this area. And I think that they are, how should I say this nicely without sugarcoating it? After watching it, it sounds like they are using their credentials to bolster their religious views. And that really shouldn't be how it is.
Right. But they come across like car salesman kind of tactics that they're using to make it seem like the case is like so ironclad, but
and I think so. Sigma, that's kind of my experience in a couple cases where it was, I'm not going to go to this institution anymore because I don't want to be challenged in my worldview. And so, I'm not the only professor they had an issue with. But yeah, I mean, so to make a long story short, that, yeah, you're actually projecting something that it basically occurred. And, I wonder about that. Like, if your worldview, again, is such that you can't allow any inquiry into your worldview, that's not an education, it's indoctrination, right? That's just it. We have lots of debates in the historical community. I have friends that are theists who are historians, and we talk history. It's normally civil, but they have to stop, and at some point they go, hey, we get to a point in our conversation, they go, yeah, I know what the scholarship says, but I'm here. They actually bifurcate their scholarship and their religion, but not all of them can do it as well as others, right? I know some that are like, they're Christians, but they're like the loosest form of Christians, and other Christians don't like them. Like, they'll be asked a question, they'll ask a friend of mine, they'll go, hey, so we don't know who wrote the New Testament, and he basically goes, nope. Like, and they're like, well, you're a Christian. He's like, yeah, but I don't care who wrote the New Testament, because he's that kind. He's very different in his makeup. He's not a fundamentalist. He's not a
kind of sounds like Will Stewart a little bit.
Well, in a way, but like even looser than, because he doesn't have a hard dogma either, or hard doctrine. He understands how early Christianity worked, right? So, like when we're talking about different things in the church in the first 3 or 4 centuries, he knows the history, so he'll go, yeah, I know the churches don't do that anymore, and they probably should, but this is how we roll now in Christianity, is kind of how he would approach it. And I'm like, all right, as long as you're good with that. Yeah, but it takes someone, to be hard, indoctrinated pretty fully. The bifurcation has to be there, and I'm somewhat sympathetic to the position, because I was raised in a family where I grew up with religious people, and I generally thought religious people were good people, and I generally thought that as long as you're learning good stuff, it'll all work itself out. But then you start tearing into some of this stuff, and you're realizing there's a lot less good stuff. And there's a lot of apologetics, and the apologetics get you around the bad stuff, and the bad stuff far outweighs the good stuff when you actually start adding, start comparing apples and oranges, right? Because when you're comparing apples and oranges, they're completely different. But when you actually start comparing this apple to this orange, as far as a moral concept, all of a sudden you have to realize that you don't want any apples, which is the bad stuff in my scenario, because I like oranges better than apples.
And if you're Eve, you better stay away from fruit altogether. And snakes,
right?
Apparently.
Well, that's something, in a future episode, I do think we need to talk, because we talk about things, but just, let's look at the good and bad sometime. You talked about slavery earlier in the show during your opening, and I think slavery is an important topic, but I think we should narrow that topic in a future episode. And we need to really talk about something I've been looking into quite a bit, is just sexual assault of all forms and sexual exploitation of women in the ancient world. Like, let's really talk about it. Let's talk about what it means to be forced into concubinage, right? We talk about the horrors of human trafficking today. The exact same thing existed in antiquity, and in many ways was worse. In many ways. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about some of the worst. It's not the guy working on a farm, because that slavery is like, well, he's working, and we're gonna get him a wife, and he's gonna have some kids, right? It's let's talk about young girls, barely adults, and we'll use that very young adolescent term to be an adult, forcibly given to someone else to pay their father's debt, but not being a legitimate wife, but being a concubine, and we know what that meant in the ancient world, right? So let's talk about the reality of things. So yeah, I guess I'm ranting a little bit.
No, in fact, you are midnight ranting to be factual, and we love it. That is why we bring all the skeptics on. We are, in fact, Midnight Ranting on scientifically proving Jesus is the Son of God. We only have a few more minutes before we head over to Discord. So now is the time to head on to the StreamYard link and send in love. I see X Music, Tinkle Tink, Doorknob Head, and Robert. We are always glad to have you on. Sending so much love. Doom, doom,
Hey,
doom,
Robert.
doom, doom, doom.
It's
Along with
a
all of our.
holiday week. People might be traveling. People out of the house. So
Mhm. That's right. Happy holidays. No matter which way you view that issue, I am just sending everybody hearts as I tend to do. Because, yeah, I see things we would not see.
Are you? So
Native
when are you going
Americans.
to do a skeptic and ranting on Thanksgiving? The fact
Yeah.
that the Pilgrim celebration in 1630, yeah, that was to be all about, we got new friends coming and reinforcements and stuff, but that was people coming from Europe, right? And then in 1637 and 1676, both of those celebrations at Thanksgiving were about, we just won battles against the indigenous people and slaughtered them wholesale. So let's have a big celebration and party afterwards. And remember, King Philip, who was the leader of this indigenous group, right, with the Pilgrims, who was villainized, they cut the guy's head and hung it on a pike for 20 years and celebrating the fact they had slaughtered the indigenous people in 1676.
Lovely.
So that's what Thanksgiving's about, at least in those two celebrations. So yeah, let's wrap that up to some historical revisionism now when we celebrate Thanksgiving as this nice, happy, get along.
Well, it reminds me of just the Sunday school version of all of the Christmas tales, the Hanukkah tales. It's nice to do a Sunday school version of Noah and Moses, but I've read Moses now and I find it horrifying. That is not the Moses story that I read on Saturday or whenever they told me
it's
I
about
had
the
to read it.
baby being found in the river, being
Exactly.
adopted,
So
then killing
romanticized.
and declaring that all the firstborn of all of Egypt should be killed because God hardened Pharaoh's heart.
Yeah, they kind of skip the hardening of the heart thing, or if they do, it's for like a second, and then his heart was hardened, or something, something, something.
And
Like,
then he wouldn't let him go. Womp womp.
womp, womp, womp. And all right, ladies and gentlemen, in a second we are going to head into our outros. But it has been fun. We have been midnight ranting on scientifically proving Jesus is the Son of God. We also had a montage of archaeologists saying the opposite direction, but they seem to, have a narrative, a bent, whatever you want to say. I'm sure they're lovely professors who give good academic and sound advice to the students in their classrooms, but I very much dislike the whole trying to use your credentials to support your theological beliefs. Any final words before we roll out just for the discussion?
Well, I would just like to eventually get some theists on and talk about the apologetics of this. This is, maybe like a former apologist, someone that is now. I'm wondering if someone who actually who has a master's degree in divinity, who's now an atheist, would be a good person to have on. And I know a couple of them, so maybe we'll actually try to do that sometime. Just talk apologetics. Understand what apologetics is.
That sounds like a date to me. And all right, on that note, we are going to roll into outros and then head over to the after show on the Discord. But I want to thank you all for joining us on this episode of Midnight Ranting, scientifically proving Jesus is the Son of God? Dun, dun, dun. Woohoo! We are doing a Pat sandwich tonight, which means James has started us off.
Oh, come on,
I
Amy.
I can't help it. It's a good peanut butter and chocolate, even though I do like peanut butter and jelly, but it's on my mind.
Peanut
So
butter
hand
and
me the keys,
bullshit.
James. That's right. That does seem to be what we got tonight on this episode of Midnight Ranting, scientifically proving Jesus is the Son of God.
So we got some statistical manipulation. You've seen it before, similar to the kind of number games they play that the likes of Otangelo will play with, like, oh, the odds that a single protein could form randomly or this amount, and then the odds that a cell could form would be a 1 with 8 trillion zeros after it. And trying to prove their religion through that. It's not very convincing. They did a bad job of it. They should be ashamed of themselves. And nobody should take them seriously in their career. So, thanks.
You should be ashamed. Good day, sir. But yes, thank you so very much, James. And all right, we're moving down the guest host of the night. We want to thank Pat so much for joining us on our Midnight Ranting, scientifically proving Jesus is the Son of God. I hope you had a fun time as always. And what are your final thoughts?
Well, first I want to start by saying thanks for having me on, and I want to say thanks to everybody in chat. And I'm sorry about 15 minutes ago, my fatigue from a long day hit me, so I ranted a little bit too much, even though it's Midnight Ranting. Good. I'll have clearer analogies next time. So just this is about historiography. You don't have to agree with a subject to be a historian and analyze it, and use your Beth methodology to try to come up with what you believe the evidence supports or doesn't support. This is really where the difference between historiography and apologetics, there's a big collision. And that collision is really confusing for the public. And what I mean is the public is like everybody that's watching YouTube and watching this video. It's purposely deceptive. And I hope I pointed out a couple little things. They use one piece of evidence with why is Jesus or why is baby Jesus, who's not baby Jesus yet, he's soon to be born Jesus, why is he in this region? Oh, because of the census. But then they don't tell you that because of the census states that they know as historians doesn't line up with the other narrative, their chronology that they're going to really put all their eggs in their cart at the end. It's very deceptive. Instead of saying there's some problems with our chronology because of this and this, they purposely skew their data, and that's not historiography, that's apologetics, but they present it as historiography. So with that, the books behind Pat are written in Klingon, aren't they? No.
At least a few of them.
So
no, none.
Yeah, no, they're all just those are kind of like, I have these bookshelves are the ones I use all the time, then 2 bookshelves over there stuff I use a little less. But some of the books I get from Oxford University Press, you can actually get pretty cheap. I think for everyone that wants to study ancient Israel and stuff, this is kind of like the best starting point. It's the Oxford Handbook of Archaeology of the Levant, and it actually runs up until the conquest by Alexander. So it covers all the stuff, formation of Israel, blah blah blah, and it's pretty good if you need to debunk Christians on the historicity of ancient Israel. And you can get this for like $50 now. This used to be like a $200 hardbound book, but you can get it in softbound now for $50. So stuff like that is pretty good. That's where I start.
Thank you so very much, Pat.
And those are actual books, right. Not a green screen.
And with that, I want to thank you all and hope you had a fun time on this episode of Midnight Ranting, scientifically proving Jesus is the Son of God, where tonight we discovered would have been a little bit different. We all became Christian. We discussed if Jesus is scientifically proven as the Son of God and watched a video that claimed to demonstrate so with 100% certainty. I want to thank my co-host James W. with our special guest host Pat Lowinger, along with the lovely people in chat, our awesome mods who make this stream so great, and lovely viewers like you who make this channel even possible. If you enjoyed the show, please like, follow, or subscribe, and then hit that bell icon to all so you can join our live streams. After the show, we will be heading over to the Skeptic and Ranting Discord server, the link of which is in the description below. So come join us for even more fun, or hey, leave a comment once the video's done. Lastly, if you'd like to help us make even more fun content, we offer some perks for our supporters by checking out our Patreon at patreon.com/Amy Newman. I am Amy Newman, and we will see you all on the next episode of Skeptic Ball Z. Good night, everyone. Mwah.